Welcome back to our semiconductor news analysis. This week, one single force is just completely reshaping the entire industry: artificial intelligence. We're seeing a demand event so massive, we're calling it the AI supernova, an absolute explosion of demand that's radiating outward and transforming everything it touches.
So let's just start with the single sentence that sent shockwaves to the industry this week. Now think about this. This isn't a forecast for the whole market. This is just the demand from one of TSMC's biggest customers, NVIDIA. It's a truly staggering statement that just sets the scale for everything else we're about to talk about.
And this isn't just an NVIDIA story, not by a long shot. If you want to see the scale from another angle, just look at Google. The word is they're about to nearly double their capital spending for 2026. And why? It's almost entirely driven by the need to build out their own AI infrastructure and break through some crippling supply bottlenecks. The arms race is officially on.
Right, so this unprecedented demand, this AI supernova, it's radiating pressure across every single sector. Here's how we're going to break down the effects today. We'll start with the demand shockwave itself, then see how it's speeding up the race to 2 nanometer, pushing packaging right to the forefront, creating a massive supply squeeze, and finally, how it's reshaping global politics and investment.
So, what's really driving this shockwave? It's not just one company making a big move. Nope, it's a systemic surge from all the major cloud and AI players. They've all realized that computational power is now their most critical strategic asset.
I mean, the sheer force of the capital being thrown around is just staggering. You've got Google doubling down to lock in its own silicon. Amazon is out there justifying a gargantuan $200 billion spend as an essential AI investment. And it's not just companies. Entire nations, like South Korea, are buying GPUs by the hundreds of thousands to power their own national AI initiatives.
All right, so where does all this massive demand go? Well, it flows directly to the most critical choke point in the entire ecosystem: the bleeding-edge silicon foundries. They're the only ones who can build the chips that are powerful and efficient enough for next-gen AI. And believe me, the race is on.
So you have all three giants in this high-stakes race, but they're each playing a different game. TSMC is just getting buried under overwhelming demand for its 2 nanometer process, with AI customers fighting tooth and nail for every single wafer. Then you have Samsung, who's seizing the opportunity with its gate-all-around, or GAA, architecture, targeting huge order growth by basically saying, hey, we're the alternative. And then there's Intel, pushing its own roadmap aggressively and telling everyone they're seeing a lot of customer interest in their 14A node as part of their big foundry comeback plan.
Okay, but why? Why this relentless, almost frantic push to shrink transistors? For AI, it's absolutely fundamental. The move to 2 nanometer and beyond gives you the raw performance per watt and the density that these next-gen models have to have. Without these advanced nodes, the power consumption and just the physical size of future AI systems would be completely unsustainable.
So what happens when just shrinking transistors isn't enough to hit your performance targets? Well, the industry pivots to a whole new battleground. It's not just about the chip itself anymore. It's about how you connect and assemble a bunch of chips into one super powerful system. So, welcome to the era of advanced packaging.
And this isn't just a strategy for the big market leaders anymore. China's largest foundry, SMIC, is setting up a major new R&D center focused specifically on this. Now, this is a crucial move for China because advanced packaging gives them a way to boost performance even when their access to the most advanced manufacturing nodes is restricted. It's a key to getting around the limits of both physics and geopolitics.
And this is creating a whole new interdependent ecosystem, a complete hardware stack. For instance, Japan's Biden is pouring over $3 billion into these complex circuit boards called IC substrates that form the foundation. The assembly giant ASE, they expect their revenue from this to double. And the heat coming off these new systems like NVIDIA's GB200 is so intense, it's forcing a massive pivot to liquid cooling across the entire supply chain.
Well, an explosion in demand this big and this fast, it inevitably leads to some fallout. And this week's news really shows a supply chain that is being stretched to its absolute breaking point, with consequences for pretty much everyone.
First, we get this really stark warning from Intel's CEO. This isn't just a temporary blip that's going to resolve itself next quarter. Nope, Pat Gelsinger is basically setting the stage for a long, multi-year period of scarcity in memory, and that's a component that is absolutely critical for AI.
And here it is. Here's the immediate, painful effect of that shortage. Memory makers are now reportedly quoting shocking premiums of 125%. This isn't just a price increase, it completely transforms the market. DRAM is now a full-blown seller's market, where the suppliers are holding all the cards.
But it's not just about memory. The squeeze is hitting everywhere. So you've got this multi-year memory shortage paired with massive price hikes. And at the same time, we're hearing that even traditional CPUs are facing shortages, with prices climbing over 10% and delivery times stretching out to 6 months. You know, this pressure is so intense, it's forcing some major strategic shifts. In what has to be one of the most surprising moves, Intel, a company that famously got out of the DRM business decades ago, is reportedly planning to re-enter the market. It just shows you how severe the shortages are, creating opportunities big enough to lure old giants back into the game.
So this huge technological and economic pressure isn't just reshaping companies anymore. It's literally redrawing the world's geopolitical map. The race for AI dominance has become a race for silicon sovereignty.
This has just ignited a global scramble where nations aren't just competing, they're forming powerful new alliances to secure their supply chains. You see TSMC deepening its pact with Japan, building a 3-nanometer fab there. The US and Taiwan are signing a Pax Silica, a silicon peace, to secure the AI supply chain. And everywhere else, from India to South Korea to Southeast Asia, we're seeing these massive national investments all aimed at grabbing a domestic piece of the semiconductor future.
And all this brings us to the final critical question. The AI supernova has ignited a new global competition. It's a race for technological supremacy that's reordering the world in real time. The outcome is anything but certain, and it really is the defining question for the industry, and frankly, for the world, for the decade to come.